Thank you, Mr. Ravi. So I would not like to talk about what Microsoft has to offer, because I treat this more as a forum of sharing, ideas, and particularly in line with, the topic for the discussion today, which is around what are the ideas coming from the global arena, which we can look at locally and try and apply them here. So that's the kind of track that I would like to maintain, sir, with your permission. Uh, it's more in terms of looking at what are the key technology trends that is going to drive what we can term as part 2 of e-governance. I'm deliberately not calling it Gov 2.0 because that has a very specific connotation. Therefore, have used my own term in terms of calling it part 2 of e-governance, and which is very relevant in the context of Gujarat as a state particularly, because I think Gujarat as a state, you have achieved way and beyond what could be termed at a country level the first stage of governance, the immense success that has happened, which we have noted over the years. And if you were to look at, two primary things which are already driving and which will significantly drive that momentum of e-governance growth in the years to come. One, I think, is very significant, which is consumerization of IT or democratization of IT. I think Ms. Sangeeta Singh made a very elaborate, well-researched articulation of how we moved into the post-Fordism era, and where participatory governance is emerging. And we are seeing that impact on IT, where people are deciding how to use IT and for what to use IT, and not necessarily always the government or businesses deciding how people are going to consume IT. Right? So that is what we call as consumerization of IT trend. The way to look at it in businesses is slightly different. If you look at businesses, what CIOs in businesses today are grappling with is the phenomena of bringing your own devices. People, since the lines between work and personal affairs is blurring in terms of usage of IT, people want to bring their own devices into workplace. And they are questioning as to why they can't use their own devices in the workplace and get a seamless experience of whatever work that they are trying to do. So CIOs are grappling with how to handle that bring your own device phenomena. Now, while that is the context in the business sphere, in government there is a different connotation to that. In terms of e-governance, I think the way it will translate into is the cognizance of the fact that people are going to decide how they are going to consume their services. Whether they are going to do it through a kiosk or not is not going to be the government's mandate. It is going to be really the consumer who is going to have access to all forms of devices in the years to come, ranging, different form factors, which are again, getting reduced in prices. They are going to decide how they are going to consume their services. So that's one big trend which I think will drive this. And the other trend which will drive e-governance part 2, I think, is the phenomena of cloud services or cloud computing. And the good news is that in respect of both of these, if you actually look at and scan around the canvas of e-governance which has been set by government or is being looked at, or the way government is responding to that, the good news is that these are all good preparations, right? And I'll kind of walk you through some of these to understand why there are forces which I call inside-out forces, which is the work that has already been done by the government lends itself to adopt these two trends, which is that of consumerization of IT and the cloud. And what are the outside-in forces which kind of forces the government or pushes the government to look at these two trends and shape their e-governance accordingly. So I'll look at those, but just before I go to that, it's very interesting to share this quotation from Bill Gates. I found it extremely impactful, where he says, "The world is getting better but it's not getting better fast enough, and it's not getting better for everyone. I think it kind of summarizes the challenge that all governments grapple with. The biggest issue of our e-governance is that of inclusion, right? And I think this summarizes it very, very beautifully. But that I just wanted to show this because it is quite impactful. But the crux of the thing that I'm really talking about is this. And I call it kind of Cloud 9 for government just for semantics purposes, not necessarily that these are the 9 forces. But yeah, I mean, there are these 9 forces which you can possibly take cognizance of. The top 2 lines is what I call as inside out, and the bottom line is what I call as outside in. Inside out meaning you've already established a lot of that infrastructure or applications or momentum which lends itself to the usage of cloud and consumerization of IT. And outside in, which you see in the bottom line, are the ones to which the government needs to respond to as they increase their momentum of e-governance. Okay. So, connectivity is the backbone, right? Without which you cannot really do anything online and go beyond online, which is, let's say you wanted to do a services-based consumption or a multi-tenant application. You cannot go beyond that unless you had a broad-based network access or, through which all kinds of devices connects. So one primary definition of cloud is that there has to be, or a characteristic of cloud is that there has to be a broad network access. The state data centers lend themselves extremely well to replicable applications within the state. And there are examples which, organizations have shown, which governments have shown. For example, we run one application commonly shared. It's really the shared services phenomena, which is shared services on state data centers by 2 different states. So one place where we have set up e-district applications for the state of Madhya Pradesh, and which is shared by the government of Jammu and Kashmir. The initial implementation for MP was about 12 to 14 months, but the rollout for Jammu and Kashmir took just about 2 months. So sharing between states, interstates or intrastates, these state data centers lend themselves perfectly to upgrade themselves into a sort of a private cloud, because private cloud really, I think, is the way cloud will get implemented or deployed in government because of sovereignty issues and privacy issues and so on. So that lends itself very, very well. UID or NPR, we don't intend getting into that debate as to whose mandate it is to do that work, but surely, the identification is an important issue. Government recognizes that as an important issue to be sorted out, and that definitely removes the disparity in data, which is, the most important element of data, which is the citizen data or a person data. Now that by itself is not going to be it's a significant exercise in terms of the registry work that you're going to be doing, but doesn't give you any outcome just by identifying the citizen. The real outcome is going to come by only when you're going to have that whole ecosystem of applications running with it, the apps. I mean, take the example from phone. The phone itself, by itself, did not give you any outcome, or a smartphone did not give you any outcome till the time apps came around it. And that is where I think, a lot of cloud momentum can be generated or cloud can be leveraged. The whole ecosystem which is going to develop application, which is going to use the authentication interface which UID will put itself out with. The common service centers, in terms of checklist, I think 92,000 or 97,000 out of 100,000 which have already been set up. There are all kinds of debates, all kinds of views on common service centers, successful, not so successful, failures, etc. But one of the basic contention there has been in terms of what services have you provided as a backbone to common service centers for itself to become sustainable. And that is again something which points towards leveraging cloud and thereby kind of using this investment that you have already created in common service centers. NKN again, is a backbone which is, why I mention NKN is not because it is probably not just going to stay as an education phenomena. While it is going to connect learning centers, research centers, it is going to impact very, very critical areas of livelihood. Not just education, but health, poverty, and a whole lot of other things. And that itself creates, gives you a multi-gigabit kind of a backbone which can lend itself to the cloud deployment of applications and so on. So the top two layers that you see are perfect in terms of infrastructure or the momentum which is already there, which lends itself to the deployment of cloud. Okay. And the bottom one, which is, I think, very, very important to consider, is what the government has to respond to in terms of, you know, how they are going to take the e-governance momentum forward. Electronic Delivery of Services Bill likely to become an act. The mandate in 5 years, 200 plus services across the entire country is a very huge mandate. I don't see the possibility of that getting achieved till the time, you know, you brought in some revolution in terms of how you're going to deliver that service. It's not going to work in a piecemeal, state by state or a department by department development of applications which might be very successful in their own right, but which are not replicable, which are not shared, which are not multi-tenanted. Okay. It has to happen. Otherwise, we are not going to reach there. We are not going to be able to meet that mandate which is proposed in the Electronic Delivery of Services Bill. So that's an important outside-in force which puts government to look at something like this. Online engagement and social networks. There are very interesting exercises which Government of India, different agencies have done, right? We know of Delhi Police, we know of Ministry of External Affairs, we know a whole lot of other agencies, local governments which have leveraged social networks, Planning Commission, Election Commission, all these leveraging online engagement and social networks to get their inputs. What I would like to comment here is that while the usage of popular social media is good, the government cannot stay restricted to the usage of that common social media, which is the likes of Facebook and Twitter. They are good because, you know, the kind of subscription that they have or the kind of network, just the sheer size of that network is very, very useful. Just given you these examples so that we understand that what we need to do in terms of online engagement or social networks is to not just get restricted. I understand that DIT has undertaken citizen engagement and participatory government task forces. They're working on those documents and frameworks. But what is important here is to understand that these networks cannot be just restricted to the popular social media networks which we have available today. They can be windows, but governments have to look at very specific networks which they can establish for specific needs. And the last is you know, the capacity building and the public-private partnership. You know, really the public-private partnership has been designed to augment the capacity to implement e-governance in the country. And you know, if that PPP has to be successful, you know, then it points towards technology which is more efficient in terms of deployment. And that's what we understand about cloud technology. It is efficient and cost effective. And therefore, if PPP is to succeed, then you know, that enablement has to happen, that acceptance has to happen from government's point of view. So time is short, I will not go into the details, but primarily what I'm saying is, in summary, is that there are two forces which are pointing towards the next phase of e-governance. Consumerization of IT with different device factors and people deciding how they are going to consume their services. They might want to just consume services through Facebook and nothing else at all. So that's one which is deciding. The other is, you know, the momentum of cloud technologies. And the good part is that, you know, there are these setups which are already there now, which may not have been intended from a cloud deployment point of view, but government, since it has them, it probably needs to look at how to, you know, take this to that next level. And plus, obviously, there are other forces which are coming in from citizen side and from other side, which is to which government has to respond and therefore get this deployment in place. Thank you very much.